Hello. There we go. Wow, this looks great. And it's just fantastic to be here. Alex, thank you so much for your story and really the inspiration as to why I'm here today. I do believe we are in this incredible moment of history. And not only do I love graduations, but I believe we're sitting in the room of the future. And I gotta tell you, as I look from this angle, I think we're looking pretty good. I have to admit, sometimes I want to press the fast forward button, but that's a whole nother story. So truly, thank you, Year Up, for inviting me here today. And welcome to all of you who have taken the time to really be here for this important and special moment. And graduates, this is a moment, this is a day, this is an accomplishment that you won't forget the rest of your lives. I want you to take it all in. And I want you to think about all the people that made it possible for you to be here today. Because it is the foundation for what will make anything you want in life happen again. So own that, be in it, be in the moment for a second. And I know you just heard about some lady and these big titles, and you might think that it was part of some predetermined plan. But that's not how it happens. It's not exactly the way it happened for me. In fact, my first big leap wasn't expected. You see, I was born and raised in the poorest congressional district in our state, 10th poorest across the country. Illiterate rates run about 40%. Rarely is it below 30% of poverty rates. And our schools are severely underfunded. So it was a little bit of a surprise when I received this unexpected package from Stanford University that said I was accepted. Frankly, everyone was a little surprised because in the history of my town, only a few people had ever gone to Stanford and never a woman or a Latino student. And now, although I was honored by this whole thing, I didn't know how I would do it financially, academically, geographically. And I didn't come from a family where going away to college was normal. In fact, as my counselors were giving me advice about whether I should go to Stanford or not, many of them openly shared that they weren't sure a kid like me could make it through the Stanford academic rigor. The subtle message was that maybe Stanford was a bit too much of a challenge for me. And I have to admit, it was beginning to sink in. And then I had one teacher, my economics teacher, who pulled me aside and said, I know you're hearing all kinds of different advice about what is or isn't good for you. But I'm here to tell you that it's not about you. It's about your community. And somebody like them can succeed at a place like that. You have to go. You know, when you hear the right words, they ring in a different way. I knew he was right. I knew it was bigger than me. And so I took the leap. And I thought that was the easy part. And then I got there, and it turns out that the hard part was staring me in the face in my first calculus class, where all of a sudden I looked up on the board, and I knew Spanish and I knew English, but I didn't know that. And afterwards, I go up to my professor, and I say, can you tell me where the intro level class is? The professor kind of looks at me curious, and he says, this is the entry-level class. And then he walks me over to the TA, who gives me this huge book to put in my backpack, and we were going to do that before class every single day so I could catch up. And I remember walking home from that TA's office, or walking to my dorm room from that TA's office. I'm carrying my backpack. It's a little heavier, and I'm walking back. And that's when reality really sunk in, which is I had no idea how I was going to do it. I couldn't call my parents. I certainly couldn't tell my roommate. I was pretty embarrassed the fact that I had an extra book just to make it into the class. But as I kept walking, I thought more and more about that economics teacher. It wasn't just me. I had a whole community holding up that backpack. And you know, that first year, they held a lot of backpacks, a lot of extra books. But it is what kept me going. It is what kept me going for that first class and then after class to make sure I could catch up, because it wasn't just about me. And at the end, it worked out okay. financially and academically. I ended up walking on to 2 Division I athletic teams, earning an athletic scholarship, starting third baseman, leadoff batter. Yeah. And I double majored in political science and economics. And we, our community, my community, graduated with honors. The power of we, the power of community, is what makes success possible. So all those around you today, it doesn't stop now, because it's that community that keeps us grounded, keeps us going in who we are and why we leap. Now that I've mentioned that you have a whole community holding up that backpack, graduates, it's you who have to put one foot in front of the other to keep going. So I was thinking about what parting advice I could give you to be helpful. I reviewed all kinds of different graduation speeches. I think you know this. You know I used my resources. I heard that's a popular process at Europe. Well, those speeches had this checklist that I was supposed to come up here and give you a checklist of life lessons, and maybe a couple of them would stick. But then as I started thinking about who I was talking to, I realized you folks, if you're standing in this room, you've learned a bunch of checklists. You've completed those checklists. You know how to look a person in the eye, how to shake a hand, how to ask good questions, how to make sure you get the job done. You know all about growth mindset, code switching, culture bridging. And those skills are what's going to keep going. But I'll say this, not only are you graduating with a powerful set of skills from year up, you came here with a powerful skills of you. So any checklist I could find wouldn't do, because I believe your challenge and your gift in this next chapter of life is your wisdom. The wisdom to know which checklist to use and when. Your wisdom that will sharpen with time if you let it, and it will give you the instinct to know when it's time to listen and when it's time to lead. Now, I want to tell you this because I know I felt this. I know there'll be moments when you'll wonder as you look around the office whether you are the right fit or if there's anyone else like you. Sometimes there just won't be. And it will bubble up, and it'll become apparent that maybe you grew up a little bit differently, or maybe you took a little different of a path. And in those moments, it can be hard to see that difference as powerful, but it is. Your story, all of it matters, even the more painful ones. And I'm going to end on this story. For me, I remember when I was about 7 or 8 years old, growing up in the Central Valley. It was mentioned my parents were farm workers. My dad is a Mexican immigrant, my mom Mexican American. And I remember being in department stores, and my parents would start speaking Spanish to each other. And inevitably, I would notice the stares disapprovingly at my parents. And at some point, I would kind of feel them. And I'd walk over to my mom, and I'd say, "Mom, shh, everyone can hear you." At 7, the world had told me that speaking another language was a bad thing. I wasn't just shushing my mom. I was shushing my own culture. I was shushing my roots. You know, my parents might not have been able to help me with my homework. They might have not been able to teach me or guide me in my college major. But the talent they had, the one I was shushing, could connect me to whole new worlds. Thank goodness, or gracias a Dios, that my parents went right along being who they were, speaking Spanish and teaching me to do the same. They were wise. They had wisdom, and they seeded that in me too. So when I say that you come with talents you don't even know, and with experiences that have given you the seeds of wisdom, let that soak in, because that is powerful. It's that thing that will change code switching to culture bridging to just sheer empowerment of all. And you are now equipped with the language of technology that is changing the world faster than ever before and at scale. I said when I started that from this angle, looking out, the future looks pretty great. I meant it. I am looking at an incredibly powerful group of graduates who are in a moment of history, equipped with the tongue of the future and the seeds of wisdom to change the world for the better. You are the future that we all have been waiting for. Congratulations, graduates.